the tools that will give you an edge. I don't want you to miss any other opportunity to land your next job or an internship. There we go. Welcome everybody. Rajiv ji is here. For those of you who are new to this channel, my name is Yuri, and we help international students study in United States with their job hunt and immigration. Rajiv ji is a US immigration lawyer, and we try to do this every Wednesday, 1 p.m. California time, 4 p.m. Virginia time, East Coast time. And then every other Thursday. So not this Thursday, but the next Thursday. Rajiv ji, let's start with, I know everybody has questions about birthright, citizenship, executive order. So maybe you can just start there and then we can go from there.
So birthright citizenship was secure under the Constitution of the United States of America. And basically the law said that 14th Amendment, that people who are born within the jurisdiction of the United States are considered to be US citizens by birth. And it doesn't matter whether you were born of legal or illegal parents. There was no such distinction. Parents were undocumented, that's okay. You were here on a visitor visa, that's okay. You were here on an H1 student visa, that's okay. What Trump says now is that if your parents are illegal or you are legal but temporary, such as F1, H1, B1, B2 visa, any of the non-immigrant visas, a child born to you is not automatically a US citizen. The only exception is if one of the parents is a green card holder or a US citizen. Right. Now, the problem with this executive order is, I think it's more of a political stunt than really. I don't think he expects to win this because there is 100 years of precedent against it. So personally, I think it's just a political stunt. And basically, this order, the executive order, said that this applies to children who are born 30 days after the passage of this order, which was, he passed the order on January 20th. So 30 days was what, 19th or 18th, something like that. I saw your posting today, where you said 20th. I don't know how you come to that, but whatever, that's somewhere in that neighborhood. So the way the counting is done under federal law, I'm trying to remember, we skip the day. So if we say 30 days, we begin counting 30 days from the day after the event, right? And so it kind of ends up being on the 31st day, I think. I could be wrong, but this is kind of what I remember. So when we count out the day the event started, but we count in the last day. So well, it doesn't have to be that exact. I mean, it's kind of where we stand. Now, of course, he's been sued on this. There's a difference between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0. Okay. The difference is that in the previous administration, they implemented policy without any forethought. There was no thinking involved. It looks like there were a bunch of people sitting around saying, let's do this, and they did that without thinking what the consequences are. Okay. Lawyers in the Trump administration 1.0 were really quite hated because they told him, this is something you can't do. It's illegal.
Yeah.
This time around, he's a little smarter. But this particular, the birthright citizenship, I think that's just a stunt. That's a political stunt. I don't think he expects it to stand.
And is that going, so whether it's February 19th or 20th, so after that, will it like just start, or if this is...
So there is operation of law begins 30 days after the executive order. Okay. What does that, or not law, it's really an executive order. The executive order says that federal government will not issue you any naturalization documents or any such documents, and they will not accept them. But the states are not prohibited. States can still issue birth certificates. So if I were in the situation of these parents, I would definitely want the birth certificates to be issued. But it's highly likely that red states that very strongly support Trump's agenda may follow his path and decide, okay, we also won't do it. If the president says, then we are not going to do it either. But not all states are required to. As of today, I think there are 20 states suing him already. It started with 18, then one more, and then one more finally joined. 20 states are suing him. I personally think this is not, I think a stay will be granted. I think it'll go in appeal, and I think it'll end up in Supreme Court, and I think he'll lose in Supreme Court.
Okay, got it.
Even in this Supreme Court, which is so heavily right.
Right. Yeah. And there is a relevant question: are green card children safe from birthright citizenship?
What do you mean by that? Green card children? That question doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we will have to interpret that, but let's wait for them clarifying that.
Yeah, I don't understand that question. Maybe he's saying children born of green card parents, and the answer
That's
is
what I was
no,
assuming.
Yeah, that's already there in the executive order. It says that if one of the parents is a green card holder, then your child can still be or is still a U.S. citizen by birth.
And I know he signed like 42 or something. Any other that are relevant to immigration?
Well, you saw the one that I had written on. And I saw your comment on that, where you say, talk to a lawyer in my show. I appreciate the recognition. So be careful, because there's a difference between giving legal advice and just in general giving an opinion. I think it should be followed always by followed with some kind of a disclaimer that I'm not a lawyer. This is my interpretation as an layperson, because law has nuances. Although once you understand enough law, chances are you are able to see the implications. But that particular order, the one that we were discussing, and it's on my blog, I actually parsed it out. That can have some very deep implications. Okay, if you go to my blog, let's look at the headlines. Just go
to the latest one.
Yeah, go to immigration.com.
Yeah.
And on the top, there is Rajiv's blog.
Yeah.
Click on that, and you see the very first entry on that.
Okay, 1 second. I'll share my screen.
Yeah. So I just want to see the headlines so that I can comment on each one of them. Man, I can't read that. Okay, enhanced vetting and screening. So these are the key changes. So what does this mean? That before you can come in, we want to make sure you align with the way we are. And there's a whole lot to it. But if you look at the bullet points, this can apply to all the current visa holders. So when you step outside the US and want to come back in, you can have the same issue. Green card holders can have the same issue. If you want a visa renewal, applying for a new visa, applying for a visa extension, if you're applying for adjustment of status, you're applying for change of status, any immigration benefit, this can come up. So it depends upon how deep you want to go. And if you go further, forget about the part 2. That one is an easy one. I'll come to that. If you come to this one, attitude and ideology screening, look at the language. It says, we will ensure that people who are coming in do not bear hostile attitude towards its citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles. I think this should be struck down by the court. It's ridiculous. So you have the Constitution that says we have freedom of expression, freedom of speech. And then you say you can't have hostile attitudes. Now I'll give you this. Interesting thing is that when you are at the border, when you have not yet entered the United States, we can be a lot tougher with you because you don't have full protection of the United States yet. You're not under the jurisdiction of the US yet. So we can be a lot tougher with you. But once you are inside, you can't apply this. Okay. So this is I found this really weird. Then they talk about cultural assimilation. We want to make sure that you will culturally assimilate. What does that mean? I can't speak Hindi at home, I mean, or Punjabi at home. So there is some really bizarre stuff in there, and it seems like something people like Steve Miller and Steve Bannon have written, the two Steves. Because I must tell you something. I can understand the sentiment behind it. If we are living in this country, the least we can do is make sure we speak the language. Okay, we should learn. It's only appropriate. We should learn the language. That doesn't mean we need to let go of our own heritage. But this is my personal opinion. There are parts of it which I think make sense. Help people assimilate rather than allowing people to. Chinese have Chinatown and Indians have Gujarati. And, that's perfectly okay. But let's make sure people are doing something to assimilate and not become pockets of isolation within a culture. But I don't think that can be mandated. And I think that's kind of what it says, that we are going to try to create programs which are designed to ensure proper assimilation. And that's okay. I don't worry about that too much. But it's just the way it's drafted and the overall Trump administration's aura of Nazi boots, that's scary. Okay. So if you go on up geographic constraints, that basically says if your country is a country we suspect, and if you are Pakistan or Bangladesh, they could make any of these countries a part of that. Previously, they had targeted Iran, Iraq, I don't even remember which countries, but they were mostly in the Middle East. So we have identified you as a security risk. Again, I can understand that because there are populations that are radicalized. So you want to have a deeper vetting. That's perfectly okay. But remember, I told you once, Yuri, that when 9/11 occurred, Muhammad Atta, who was one of the people responsible for the massacre, he was here on a tourist visa. And apparently, before they attacked the Twin Towers, he had applied for a tourist visa, tourist stay extension, a B extension. So after this occurred, all the terrorists had been identified. A few weeks later, USCIS approved. He had died. They approved his tourist visa extension, tourist stay extension. So that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? But it's also understandable because one hand doesn't talk to the other. So if you go further down, it says agencies will talk to each other. What does that mean? Better technology. What does that mean? More jobs. Okay. And they want to, and this is it is an interesting observation. It says all visa programs, we have to have an evaluation of all visa programs to ensure they are not used by foreign nation states. That's fine. Or other hostile actors. What does that mean? Who are the other hostile actors? Companies? Staffing companies, for example? I don't know the answer to that question. Okay, so if you keep going down, I think there were about 8 or 10 points that I had covered. Immediate removal, that we can skip. Privacy information sharing, we talked about that. Or denaturalization. Okay, so 8 USC 1451. What does this mean? 8 USC means 8 United States codes. So United States code, not codes. Code is the compendium of all US laws. 8 is its volume. So if you kind of do an equivalence under Code of Federal Regulations, all immigration laws related to USCIS are under 8 CFR. So 8 USC for code and 8 CFR for regulations. So in volume 8, 1451, it says that we can, don't think just because you got naturalized, you can keep it. I'm speaking from memory. I don't remember all the details. We can take away your naturalization if you committed fraud, you lied, or we find out something that, just clearly shows that you should not have received your naturalization. We can take it away, and not only can we take your naturalization away, we can take away derivatives too. So if UD got his naturalization, his wife got her naturalization through UD, so that can be taken away too. from what I remember. And there was another bizarre provision in there that if you are convicted of contempt of Congress, who was investigating you for subversive activities, your naturalization can be taken away. So there's a whole lot of things here that to me seem to be pretty much out there, very difficult to justify them. Some of these aspirational, you have to have the attitude to support the US. Well, that is true. I don't have any problem with that. But just the way it is drafted, and it also depends upon who holds the stick. So not only do we have to worry about what they are saying, but what are they doing? Okay. Yeah. And here the problem is, because they have come better prepared, they are installing people with equally radical views, predetermined views about how immigration and immigrants are all bad people. So then you have to have a sweeping review, evaluate all existing regulations, policy, procedures, and provisions of Foreign Affairs Manual. This is the USC, the State Department's, the consulate's standard operating procedures. Okay, so they are going to get a lot tougher. I think they're going to get.
And so this is specific to the visa officers granting visas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So identification, verification. This is all normal stuff. Keep going down. Historical entry review. I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. I would suggest people to go take a look at it. It's also on my LinkedIn stream. I'll
put it link as well.
Mm-hmm. And we are keeping track of it. We'll see what happens. I suspect that there'll be a stay issued on this within the next couple of days.
And so this is, I mean, obviously you shared this link, but this is the order. When does this go in effect? Like immediately?
It's already in effect.
Okay, it's already in effect.
Yeah, but basically it's saying, a lot of it saying is, let's look at what we are doing and let's revise all that. Okay.
Okay.
So the biggest problem is, there is an underlying concern here that there is an assumption that immigrants are bad for the United States. For a country that is built by immigrants, composed by immigrants, consists of immigrants, to hold that immigrants are bad is kind of funny. Okay. Funny, not ha-ha, but funny, oh man, you are cuckoo. Okay. But I do agree that we need better restrictions on entry into the United States, far more incentives to obey the law rather than break the law. Because I look at, and people are right, this issue has been brought up before, that if you are far better off just sneaking in through the border or pretending that you have an asylum case than you are spending 15 years working in this country, paying more taxes than most Americans do. There's 1% Indians in the country. And if you look at the share of education that we have, 13-14% in graduate schools, 10 times more than native population. And I don't think, again, not alone Indians, but immigrants are hardworking people. We come here because we think it's opportunities. Personally, I came here partly because my state was up in flames, a lot of internecine fighting, and my family had all moved here. So there was no way of staying back. I like what this country had to offer. I have no problem with that. You could make an honest living without having to lie to anybody, without any corruption, except at the highest levels. And that doesn't touch most people. So this is where we are. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks. Things will become clearer. I think they'll lose a few cases. They're still too far out. And I also actually, I have been a lifelong liberal, but I must confess that some of what they call woke stuff is really, that's also crazy. So I think on extremes, we see only crazy people. Most of us are center or maybe a little bit right or left of center. Most of us are not kooks. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of the environment we are in. We had extreme left democratic agenda, which was trying to be pushed by the extreme left, and then we have the extreme right agenda now. But the country chose the extreme right for whatever reason. Okay,
Mm,
I personally am very disappointed with the perception of the people. Okay,
mm,
this guy comes in and he immediately pardons all the so-called writers, or according to him, freedom fighters, people who
mm,
beat up policemen died. Okay, and they were just pardoned. No distinction made between, even JD once said that there was no
mm,
distinction made between violent people and those who were just there peacefully. Although I don't think any of the peaceful people got jail time. But that's an indication of where we are as a country.
mm,
So, as far as immigrants are concerned, students are concerned, do everything by the book. I think this too shall pass, because they've come in blazing with both guns out like cowboys, but it's not going to last long.
mm.
Reality will sink in soon.
So, overarching advice for students who are like right now in India, watching this, planning to come or coming back from their vacation, what would you advise them?
See, Yuri, from an immigration law perspective, I see no difference so far. Okay.
Okay. Mm,
If you can afford to wait and watch a semester, do so. Let's see what happens over the next 4, 5, 6 months. We'll know better, right? For example, do they go after H4EADs? Do they
mm,
go after STEM OPT? Do they go
mm,
after CPT?
mm,
So if we know a little bit better what they're thinking, we can then advise people perhaps better. On the other hand, if you already have to make a decision, do or die decision, then you have to decide what is more important, building a career in the United States or getting education in the United States. That's the way I see it. Okay. If I like the idea, okay, I'll get educated here, but I'll go back to India.
yeah.
I have no desire to live in a hostile country. Okay.
Mm,
If you leave that option open, although I must confess, again, that's an overstatement, because people are fairly kind here, but there are plenty of people who are just intolerable. And
mm,
Trump brings out the worst in us, unfortunately. We see it that way, but the other side doesn't, and the other side won. And that's the truth. But here is the difference. The other side won. Nobody on the Democratic side, oh, the elections are rigged. Okay.
mm,
Funny thing is, between the two Democrats and Republicans actually lost a lawsuit. I think it was good 20, 30 years ago, where the court said, you better shape up. We don't want you to do all this nonsense about rigging up ballots and all that, because they were caught doing that. I think they were caught intimidating voters. Okay.
mm.
And so they were under not an indictment, an injunction for, I think, almost 15, 20 years. Democrats have no such indictments. So when Republicans won, there was not a peep out of the Democrats. It's fine, it's our election. You won, and that's
Mm,
fair.
mm, mm.
That kind of it leaves us with a bad taste in the mouth. That why are there two different standards? Um, Republican voters should hold their own leaders to the same standards. That this
Yeah.
is our election. This is
Yeah.
what we've done. It's all by the law. So in any
Mm,
case, if you are a student and you have the luxury to wait a few months. If you don't, decide whether the education is more important or the career, because I can't guarantee the career.
yeah. No, I was also asking for H1B people who went for stamping, or people who are on OPT who went for vacation, and now they're planning to come back. What
See,
should they keep in
see,
mind?
Yuri, it's very difficult to change laws overnight.
Mm,
It's, of course, you can change policies. Remember, the Democrats on their way out made sure whatever the policies were enshrined in regulations.
yeah.
So if Trump wants to take away those regulations, we'll have notice. It should not happen overnight.
Mm,
So, what is the net effect of all these policies? Well, they can open your phones, they can open your computer, that they already always could. They
yeah.
could ask you to unlock. You could say, I'm not going to unlock my computer. I'm not going to unlock my phone. But then they could say, all right, then go back.
Mm,
So at the airport, this is something that can happen. So you can probably expect a more strict vetting or looking at your back.
Scrutiny, yeah. Mm.
Uh, when does that get implemented? That's difficult to say. I would suspect a few weeks.
Mm.
It's and I'm also sure that because CBP has so much power at the border, they can probably implement some of it already. So, but they can't stop people from coming in. You have
Mm.
your visa legally. You can't be stopped unless there is something in your background that gives the government a foothold into claiming that there's something wrong with your background, or you have some fear in your background. That I've run into that last time when Trump came to power. First of all, our work tripled simply because so many cases were being created out of nothing.
Mm.
So I remember I have gone to USCIS maybe 10 times in my life, 15 times in my life,
Yeah.
because it's never needed. Things are done on paper. Somebody went for naturalization. This husband and wife, young people, they had lived here 18, 19 years. Both kids were US citizens by birth. They go and they got denied their naturalization. Why? Because their green card employer was indicted for fraud and misrepresentation and all those things. Okay.
Mm.
So, of course, we went and fought it. And as soon as I started talking, when we went to appeal, I went to USCIS and talked with I went in appeal. So when I presented the case, and the officer immediately said, "Yeah, this is an obvious mistake. This should not have been denied." I said, "Well, look at the history. These employees of that company, not one of them was indicted.
Yeah.
Only the employer.
Yeah.
There was not even a suspicion or an investigation against the employees. How can you hold them responsible? That too, 14 years later. So I think we'll see more of this
Yeah.
because when you don't put guardrails on policies, that's why we have regulations, because there are guardrails. It's been thought very carefully. We have considered every legal angle, and then we propose the regulations. Then we take people's comments into account. What are people saying about the regs?
Mm.
I won't say that most of the comments are really useful, but there are many comments that are quite useful, and they give the government ideas. So that first they do the proposed regulations, then they open it for notice and comment, and then if they are going to accommodate those comments, they'll change the regulations a little bit, or they will answer those comments saying, "This is what we think. We appreciate your input, but this is what we think." So there's some thought put into it and some group mind put into it.
Yeah.
Policy, you just sign.
Yeah.
Executive order, you just sign.
Mm.
So that's why they lose so much at least last time they lost so much in courts. This time they have a very firm grip on the courts too.
Mm. Okay. I know a lot of our audience have questions. So unless you have anything else to bring up.
No, that's pretty much. We're still waiting and watching. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. I have green card and from Bangladesh traveling in February. Should I be worried?
Traveling in February, I don't think so. Say it. I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless there is something in your background that worries you. I would say that if you have any fear that there was something in your background that was, for example, this employer who was indicted, talk to a lawyer, talk to your lawyers, and just clarify that to make sure that you don't come under any grounds of exclusion.
Mm. What happens to children born of J1 and H1 2
They
years
are
ago?
US citizens already.
Yeah.
Because remember, it's prospective. The law begins 30 days from the date of signature. It does not go back. That would be ridiculous if it reached back
I
and
like
said,
the way
"Oh,
you said it
by
last
the way, by the way, you all think you are citizens." No, you are not. So what?
Yeah. No, I like the way you put it last time. If we
Yeah.
were driving on 25 miles per hour and then all of a sudden it's like 10 miles hours.
Okay, I said 55 miles an hour. So
Right.
I said
Sorry.
you were
I
driving 55 miles an hour for the last 20 years, and the government says, nah, it should be 35. We're going to give you tickets for the last 25 years.
yeah.
So can't do something crazy like that, right?
Yeah. Okay. Next one is it risky to get OPT or OPT EAD card on F1 if
No,
the I-140 petition is pending or approved?
no, no. Under Biden administration, not at all, Zubair Saab. Um, Even under Trump administration, if it is in the regulations, by all means, go for it. The only thing I would recommend is if you have the option to apply now or apply 3 weeks later, apply now. Don't be in a panic, but apply as early as you can.
Okay. I'm currently on my 6th year of H1B visa. My I-140 got approved last month. Can I apply for an extension with new employer without waiting for 180-day period?
So can you? Yes. Should you? Careful. So there's two different issues, right? Can you? Yes, you can. But should you? Hold on. So today I had a consultation on this issue exactly. So this gentleman had a rather complicated history, but the basic issue was the one that's relevant here. I have an I-140 approved, and 180 days of its approval are over on February 8th, approximately. Okay. Can I apply for an H1 transfer now? A few days. So I said, here's what I don't like. Technically, government can move to revoke your I-140 if they red flag you before 180 days are over. Okay. They have done that in the past. I've seen cases. Now, if you look at the regulations are not that clear about it. The regulations say, well, we can revoke it for fraud. We can revoke it for obvious error. If we made an error approving the case, we can revoke it. But that's even before or after I have 180 days. Okay. So to me, waiting 180 days before you red flag yourself is a good idea. Okay. What is this 180 days business? So I've said this before, but let's revisit it. The moment your I-140 is approved, this started on January 17, 2017. This law was implemented, this regulation. The moment your I-140 is approved, the priority date becomes yours. So next day, if you leave the employer, you still carry your priority date. Okay. And the employer revokes your I-140 2 days later, you still carry your priority date. That's not going to be taken away. If the I-140 stays approved for 180 days, now remember, you don't have to stay with that employer. But if it stays approved for 180 days, which means the employer doesn't revoke it and USCIS doesn't move to revoke it, then not only do you carry your priority date, you also carry the right to extend your H1B beyond 6 years with any employer, and your wife can continue working on her H4 EAD, even if the I-140 is revoked. So that is the advantage of not churning the water before 180 days. Right?
Yeah.
Could you just move to another employer? Yeah, but when you apply for an H1B, you can get red flag. It happened to one of the people who consulted me. I was a little surprised because I didn't think the government was that aware of these things. But they connected the dots and they said, wait a minute, we're gonna go for. And I think ultimately, he prevailed, but it was a tough fight. So why get into that situation? If you can avoid creating waves before 180 days, do so.
Okay. I need your advice regarding my CPT status. My employer issues paychecks every 2 weeks, and my last paycheck was for 2 weeks, but it includes dates beyond my CPT end date.
Yeah, so we've talked about this before. So when I think you Levy or Levi, I think Levy. So Levy, when you get paid today for work that you did yesterday, it's only yesterday you need an EAD. Today you don't need an EAD because you're getting paid for what you did yesterday. So if I get paid in March for the work I did in January when I had an EAD, but in March my EAD has expired, it is not illegal to receive a payment because the payment is for work I did when I had authorization.
Nice. Okay. can we start working as soon as H1B transfer petition is filed with new updates? Because we needed receipt previously.
Well, there is some argument about this, and I've said that for almost 10 years. That what happens is the word in the regulation is upon receipt. Now the question is receipt. Does that mean the physical receipt, or does that mean when papers are received by the USCIS? The reason I advise the conservative approach is because once you have the receipt, the employer can prepare the paperwork that they maintain internally called I-9. Without I-9, I don't know how they would prepare the paperwork. So that's normally what it means. Now, the question is, can you start working upon receipt? Sure, that is the law.
Okay. I'm product analyst and my H1B and PERM was filed under the same role. I want to switch to product manager role in a new company. Will this be an issue during H1B transfer since SOC codes are different?
So SOC codes can be different, and they are different all the time.
What is SOC? Sorry.
It's their classification system. I don't really know what it stands for. Standard Occupational Classification, I think.
Okay.
So, now I have a problem. I have to figure out. Yeah, because this is quite basic.
Rajiv ji has this habit of being curious.
Standard occupational classification. I do that for English too. I have to know exactly what the word means or what. I think it's a good habit for my profession.
Yeah,
standard occupational classification. So now the way SOC works is there is the 3-letter code, then there is not the 3-letter, 3 character code, which is let's say 013, and then there is 4 or 5 numbers more, and then there is finally 2 or 3 numbers more, something like that, right? So there are the broad classifications. For example, all computer occupations, let's say, are 013. I'm giving you an example. Within 013, if you're a systems analyst, you could be 013, 1355, .12, whatever. Okay. So now within computer occupations, there is so much movement. And sometimes you can spill from computer to management. Okay. That may not necessarily be in that SOC category. So I don't think we should obsess about the SOC codes. And in any case, it's not like you are somehow claiming that there is relevance to what you did in the past in the current job, such that it can't be utilized in any way than to be an exact mirror of what you did. That's not required. Otherwise, there would be no progress in the jobs. What if you went from being a software developer to a CTO? Very different SOC codes. I mean, they're still on the same basic classification, but it doesn't mean that you can't do that in the next job. Obviously, you're going from job to job. There'll be progress in your field. And you went from being a product analyst to a product manager. That seems like a very natural progression. Don't worry about it. Go for it.
Nice. Okay. I'm on F1 visa stamp OPT, traveling to India in February. I have my travel I-20 and employment verification letter. Will I need anything else?
Well, Aditya ji, employment verification letter, also pay stubs if possible. Okay, and the employment verification letter should specifically say that when you return, they intend to have you resume and you expect to resume the same job.
Okay. I am on H1B and my green card was filed in EB1C. It got approved 1 year ago. Can there be a problem?
No. It's very difficult to disturb approved cases. Very, very difficult.
Nice. Okay. Trump has mentioned that he wants legal immigration and supports H1B yesterday. I think that was one of the videos. Do you think he may pass any policy regulation that might benefit H1B and green cards?
So, Vic, I don't know if you watch Hindi movies. Salman Khan said, जब एक बार मैं फैसला कर लेता हूं तो मैं खुद अपनी भी नहीं सुनता. So Trump is kind of like that. I don't think Trump knows what Trump is doing. And remember, he's not supposed to know the nth detail of policy, and he doesn't. And no president does, unless the
The video
president.
he says he knows HB1 very clearly.
Well, he just knows H1B because his wife used to have one too.
He said HB1, but I was just
Yeah,
joking.
HB1. Yeah, he loves the Hindu too. So,
Right.
but in any case, I don't know which way it's going. I still think that I was watching a Pakistani news anchor talk about H1B, and that was crazy. They said, well, what India has done is Jaishankar ji went to Trump, and I love the way people talk. He went to Trump and he said, okay, we'll take back 18,000 people who are illegal Indians or people who are undocumented Indians living in USA. We'll take them, but you give us 200,000 H1Bs, and Trump has agreed. Trump cannot agree to that. It's not within his power because there is a $65,000 statutory ceiling on this. Okay, it's by statute. Congress has made that ceiling.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's uske baba ka raj nahi hai. It's not up to him that he can do anything he wants. But he's not emperor yet, although he's quite close to it, as close as we've been. So there are all kinds of ridiculous things going around. Don't listen to everything people are saying. Don't listen to rumors. Talk to people. Talk to your own lawyers. Most of us are tuned in. We know what's going on. And we can tell you what is absolutely bizarre and makes no sense, and what may have some logic to it. So I would not trust everything I hear Trump say or Trump supporters say until we see something in writing, which we can then look at and say, this is going to get slapped down by courts.
Okay, nice. Can a person on H1B with company B uses company A's approved I-140, never worked there, 180 plus days old, to extend their H1B beyond 6 years?
Yeah, that is also a common scenario. So if you are working for employer XYZ or Z, but your green card was filed by employer A, for whom you have never worked, they got the I-140 approved. Can you extend your H1B beyond 6 years with any of XYZ or any other employer, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K? And the answer is yes.
Does this mean that Trump's argument for Second Amendment is defied by the new executive order saying he can change 14th?
I have no idea what that means. So I'm sorry. So Second Amendment is what? Freedom of speech and expression. What is Second Amendment? Let's just double check that. I confess I'm not a constitutional scholar. I used to do a lot of these cases. Second Amendment. It's the right to bear arms, right?
That's what I thought.
Say a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of. What does Second Amendment have to do? Let's look at the question again. Trump's argument for Second Amendment is defied by new executive order saying he can change the 14th. Oh, I see. So what you're saying is, if you think you can change by executive order the 14th, then another president can come and change second by executive order. I think that's what he's saying. Agent of chaos, you bring us all these difficult questions. So I don't even remember what is the freedom of speech, freedom of religion.
Yeah.
I can barely keep track of my immigration law, dudes.
How far are you from New York?
New York is train ride is about 3.5 hours. I would never drive to New York. It's too much work. Yes. And flying is too much too, because you end up in.
You don't fly at all because you don't trust pilots.
Unless they let me fly the plane, I don't fly. So
I might be in New York tomorrow. I still don't know, but might be. So
I just stop by Aja. It's a 3.5 hour train journey. You can just take the train, and train to train.
Sab aayenge, but then my mom and brother and
just come visit.
Okay. Okay. Last H1B attempt firm filing willing to transfer to another country on a temporary work visa. However, they won't file H1B if I'm out of USA. Drawbacks on L1B return.
Last H1B attempt. Okay, so I've tried twice or whatever. I mean, there's no last. You can try as many times as you want. It
But
could be because your OPT is expiring. Okay.
yeah.
Last H1B attempt, firm is willing to transfer to other country on a temporary work visa. Okay. However, they won't file H1B if I'm out of US. No, that's fine. If you can come back on L1B, Purav, the only problem is L1Bs are one of the more difficult visas to get processed. L1B can be sometimes as simple as just filing 6 papers, and sometimes it can take 600 papers to get approved.
Mm.
So L1Bs are pretty unreliable. L1A is far more reliable if you're a managerial or executive level employee. So hopefully you can take leaps and bounds and become a managerial employee very quickly. Then L1A is a great visa because then you get EB1C, which gets you your green card within a few years rather than waiting for a decade plus.
Okay. I have a trip planned in 2 weeks for my first H1B stamping in Singapore. Do I need to be worried?
So, Medaji, it depends. Okay, so if a good H1B case, in my opinion, is a case where you have a reputable company. It doesn't have to be a big company, but at least let's say it's not disreputable. They are not on blacklist of the government. Okay. Ideally, you're working in-house instead of being staffed out. That can be a little bit more difficult because often the clients can't verify the employment or they have all these bureaucratic rules. So you are working in-house. Company is not disreputable. You are clearly qualified for the job, but let's say that there is a marginal problem. For example, management analyst. Okay, this is a criterion that can be challenged. This is a job category that can be challenged. So it's very difficult for me to say you should, but should you be worried? Should you be worried more than you were yesterday? No, not yet. Because even yesterday the law was the same. If you have all these issues, the government can pinpoint it and then make it a problem for you. So talk to your lawyers, make sure you don't have any of the red flags that we are worried about.
Okay. Right. F1 holders OPT is expiring soon and not a paid job off for STEM. If they marry someone who is on F1 STEM OPT before OPT ends, will it affect their F2 change of status?
OPT is expiring and not a paid job for STEM. So I guess what you're saying is, Amanji, that you don't have a STEM job. So if you get married to somebody who's on F1 STEM before your OPT ends, will it affect your change of status to F2? I don't see why. I don't see why. I don't think it's any more difficult than an F1 getting married to an F1 in the middle of their course. Why is that any more difficult? To me, it doesn't make any legal difference. But ultimately, the change of status is a judgment call by the government. Okay. However, I think it's not a legally complex case.
Okay. I have H1B working in United States as software developer for almost 16 years, but I have Bachelor's of Engineering in Mechanical. Will this cause any problem in my H1B renewal?
You see, you have a saving grace. The saving grace is you have 16 years of development experience. Okay. So will you have a problem? Nah. Can they question it? Can they create issues? As long as your lawyers are careful in drafting the H1B, piece of cake.
Okay. Will previous H1B holders who lost job a year back and are currently on F2 visa have more scrutiny when they find a job and want to move back to H1B?
I don't think so, Javarji. I don't think so. Now, legally, no, but if they are looking for your cultural background and you are a part of Hanuman Dal at some point and they think that is an objectionable organization, because we don't really know. If you look at the executive order, we don't really know what they are going to object to. So if you again, you can go to my blog or any of the other places. My blog is on immigration.com. That's our website. So you can see that there are some pretty silly things in there, like if you have been a member of uh, uh, an organization that is somehow not acceptable to Trump, then you can have a problem. But we don't really have definitions of those things yet. So as long as you don't have any of those things, I don't think things are going to be any more difficult for you to convert back to H1B than they were before Trump came to power.
Okay. I'm on H1B, planning on pursuing PhD. When I apply for change of status from H1B to F1, is there a premium processing? And if my change of status is approved before the university start date, what is the procedure? Any impacts on change of status from H1 to F1 for a PhD within United
No,
States?
it can be done. So before Biden administration straightened these things out, there were a lot of issues, and I'm again speaking from memory. So it used to be, this was where things got complicated. First of all, you can do premium processing now. Previously, that was not available. That's when things got really complicated, because sometimes it could take 8, 9, 10 months for the change of status to be approved. By the time your approval was to be given, your I-20 would have expired because your course had already started. So then what they did they would say, okay, give us a new I-20, because remember, you have to maintain status until 30 days before the start date of your school. Now all that is taken away. As long as you apply for the next available semester and you are in status when you apply, they're not going to create all these problems. But I think if I were in your situation, I would just do premium processing.
Nice. I completed 10th grade, a 3-year diploma, and a 3-year bachelor's in computer engineering with a lateral entry totaling 16 years of education. Will I face any H1 issues in H1B? Am I eligible for H1B visa?
So unless you have some experience, there are things that could be asked. So if we take 3-year diploma, in India, many of the diplomas which are recognized, they become the 4th year of your bachelor's. So if you have a 3-year diploma and then you go to a 3-year bachelor's, you actually are taken in the 2nd year of the bachelor. Not a 3-year, but it's a 4-year bachelor's. So it's like the 2nd year of the bachelor's. Okay. The problem is with the 10th grade. So typically the pattern is you do the 12th, you do a 3-year diploma, and then you do a 3-year degree. And that's equivalent to a year's degree in most cases. It needs to be evaluated. In your case, I think you'll be well advised to get your credentials evaluated. And when you get them evaluated, ask the evaluator to use what is called ACRAO, AACRAO, ACRAO Edge Standards. Edge is the database maintained by this organization called ACRAO, American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers, ACRAO. Okay. Get your credentials evaluated, and your lawyers should do it. Don't get, it'll be better if they get it done.
So lawyer is in like H1B lawyer?
H1B lawyers.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I thought 10th ke baad agar diploma and then 3 years it is 16 years, no?
Well, the problem is it's more complicated than that. So just 16 years is not enough. There has to be a certain acceptable degrees, a certain number of acceptable degrees. And that's determined by a CRAO Edge. They keep all these standards. Because diplomas can be all kinds. What if the diploma is not recognized? Okay. So I don't really know. And I'm not an expert in evaluation. I can just say that this should be taken to an expert and we should get an opinion from them.
Yeah. Okay.
And by the way, that just costs typically a couple $100. It's not too expensive.
Okay. I'm on E3 visa, and in June 2024 got visa renewed from Australia, and also my company
processed
my H1B, and I got I-797C for consular processing in August from October 23 to October 2026.
Okay.
What's the question? Oh, sorry. Is it better to go and get changed over to H1B or continue to stay with E3 and ask my company to do another renewal for June
Yeah.
2025 to
Yeah.
2027?
Chandraji, if you don't want to travel, you can just do a change of status. That's just as easy. But visa stamping is probably quicker, um, and you can go to any of the neighboring countries. You don't have to go all the way to Australia. Even for E3, you can go to any of the neighboring countries. And E3 is always available. It's not as though if you change to H1B, you can never go back to E3. But the reason I want the H1B to be triggered is because, well, H1B is difficult to capture if it goes away. Then you have to go through the lottery again, right? If the government says, well, doesn't look like you were serious about the H1B. Is it a problem if you stay on E3 all the way? No, I haven't had any issues, although there are some things that are not clear. For example, H1B by statute says you can have a green card pending. They can't deny you any benefits because you have a green card pending. E3 is not that clear, even though it says, okay, you can have a green card pending as long as you have the intention to return back to your home country. I think that can be reinterpreted by policy, but H1B by statute protects you. That's the difference.
Okay, we'll do one last question and then let you go. Can USCIS revoked I-140 before 180 days, even if employer did not request to revoke and no
Yeah.
fraud in application?
So that's the case I was mentioning. That's what happened to that case. What happened was this gentleman, he did not ask me before he did it, but he sent for a consultation when he received a notice from the government saying, well, it looked like you've quit your job before 180 days. Here is a notice of intent to revoke. NOIR they sent, and they give you 10 days. Respond why we should not revoke. Okay. I think ultimately, what I told him was that if you look at your lawyer should look at the regulations. And the regulations don't say that you can just automatically revoke, and there's got to be somebody asking for a revocation. So I don't know how it went. He never called me back, and I didn't follow it up, but it can happen. So therefore, I avoid that situation. Why get into words if I can avoid them?
Okay. There's one more question. Wife on H1B, filing for EB2 national interest waiver. I am on J1, would be renewing it 4 years. In my wife's green card application, will the dependent file on a I-145 based on I-140 or undergo? I'm not sure what the question really means, but you probably know.
So in immigrant visa processing. So what he's asking is, now I'm not clear about this. I'm assuming that you have a 2-year home residency requirement. So let's just get that clear first of all. Do you have a 2-year home residency requirement? Because all these questions only come up if there's a 2-year home residency requirement. HRR.
Your name was A. Pay $10. Yes, I have. That's what he says. Yes.
$10 pays for like 3 seconds of my time. Okay, you have 2-year home. I don't do it for money, guys. I'm just here because if I can, in 2 minutes, help somebody out, I'm only happy to do it.
Yeah.
So when you have home residency requirement, the way I understand the law, and this is how we have always done it, you can not get a green card until either you've got a waiver or you have complied with the 2-year requirement. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I had a husband and wife couple. The husband was a surgeon. The wife was a CTO. Very senior people, very smart people. So when we did her green card, we got into an issue because he had a J1 home residency requirement. Now, he could not get a waiver. So we finished her green card and he went back to India. Once the 2 years were over, we applied for, actually you can apply for it earlier also. They just won't give it to you. We applied for, in those days we could do it through through notification. I forgot the name of it. Through you could actually ask for consular processing directly to the consulate by sending them a copy of the I-140. So we did that. So he came 2 years later after complying with the requirement using the same green card which she did. It's called following to join. So your understanding is correct. You could actually undergo immigrant visa processing. So she's done her NIW. When the dates become current, she files her 485. And if you are still subject to the 2-year home residency requirement, you can say, I will do following to join from India. But now you have to either go to India for 2 years or you have to get a waiver. By the way, I'm sure you are aware of the rules. So the J1 home residency requirements come from 3 sources. Either you are on your skill is on the skills list for the country where you are coming from. So let's say you are a biotechnologist and India says we want biotechnologists. So the US government says, okay, we'll send you a biotechnologist back. That's a skills list, which is recently eliminated. For India, US government says this is no longer a requirement. So if you have a home residency requirement because of being on skills list, that's out. Second is if the government has paid for your stay here. So then you may not make, that's a different requirement. And the third is, of course, for physicians and all. They come under a different category altogether.
Okay. One last question, and please do not send any more questions. Rajivji has to go, and I have to go as well. My I-140 just got approved under EB2 National Interest Waiver. My wife is on H4. How can I apply for her H4 EAD in premium processing? We plan to have child this year. With the Trump executive order, will my newborn be United States citizen?
You can't do premium processing for H4 EAD. That's not available right now. Previously, because of a court settlement, government had said they will be doing premium processing as a matter of settling the case. If you bundled the application, H1 premium processing, H4 EAD in the same package, they will premium process everything. But they sometimes did, sometimes they did not. And in any case, that settlement expired, I think, on January 18th. So therefore, are they going to continue to do so? We don't know. There's no official statement on that. And even when it was in effect, they were sometimes doing it, sometimes they were not doing it. They were inconsistent. And now, will my son be a US citizen? We just talked about that. I think he's going to get, especially, in my opinion, for people who are on H4, F1, it's a very difficult case to sustain that their child is not born a US citizen. I can see maybe you could make an argument, although that is not really acceptable. But you could probably make a slightly better argument for people who are here either without documentation or short-term visa like a B1, B2. But for F1s and H1s and Es, these are long-term visas. I don't think you can argue the same thing. What am I supposed to do? Have my child in India so that they become a US, so travel to India just to have a child? That's silly. This is where my life is. How do I just leave my...
and if they are born in US, they would go on dependent visa. All their life, they are in United States growing up.
Yep.
And then they age out at 21, which is weird.
Yeah. So I think they have not considered this seriously. I think this is a political stunt. That's why I say it's because they're not stupid people. There are plenty of smart people in the administration. There are plenty of good lawyers. These are not stupid people. I think this is just a political stunt. They expect to lose.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong, I would love to see what the reasoning of the court is to sustain this.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Chris is very upset. He says Steve Banner can answer his question than Yuri. I'm sorry I didn't pick your question. It wasn't intentional.
What happened?
I think he's asking if a guy if an H1B guy works multiple jobs illegally, running payroll for only one job, and my wife being on H4 and working for multiple jobs, though she manages our meetings. I'm not sure what the question is then, but
Yeah, so if you get caught, you're gonna get deported, brother.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you, Rajiv ji. Thank you, everybody. See you guys next week, Wednesday and Thursday.
I want to make one quick point before we go.
Yeah.
This is important.
Yes.
Okay. So what Chris asked me just now, what if I have done this? What if I have worked illegally and I've done all this? Okay. What should I do? For H4 people, it's easy. You go outside, get a visa stamp for your regular job, and in the paperwork, in the DS-160, it says, if it asks you, have you ever been out of status? You tell them the truth, that I worked 3 jobs illegally. Chances are, at least under the law, they can't stop you from coming back. F1 is different. B1, B2 is different. But for H1, L1, these types of visas, lying about having worked illegally is far worse than actually having worked illegally. Just a thought. Don't do anything without talking to a lawyer, but that is an avenue that should be explored.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Rajiv ji, and thank you, everybody. We will talk soon. I'm going to answer. Rajiv ji, just wait now.